What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Serious Angler Podcast, powered by our friends over X2 Power Batteries. I'm your host, Bailey Eichbrett. If you watched Tuesday night's live stream, our first episode of part one, if you will, with Mike Corbishley, who's the recent winner of the NPFL, you guys noticed that Andy, unfortunately, was not present. Andy's not feeling too well, so he took the night off. So you guys are stuck with me again. But great show coming up for you guys, but it's a great show also. This the recent one with Mike Corbishley. Encourage you guys to go listen to that. Talked about fishing some brush piles, how to make milk runs if you get caught fishing behind somebody, how to switch it up and get back on a good cycle, good rotation, if you will, and as well as working in the fishing industry and having that work-life balance. It's a pretty tough thing to find because all we want to do is fish, and what we need to fish is time. And to get time, that's a pretty hard thing to do. So we talked about a lot of that. Definitely check that out if you're interested. But today's show, we talk with my pal Alex Rudd, and I want to preface this. My soundboard decided to say "screw you, pal," and it's basically lagged out on me a couple times. So there might be some 5-6 seconds of dead air here and there, a couple times throughout the show. I promise. We finish it out with my MacBook mic, so the sound might not be as good. But I think I figured out a solution for it, and we're gonna rock with it for now. But just giving you guys a fair warning that there might be some dead silence for a few seconds here and there. Something we're trying to look for solutions going forward, but technology has a way of always getting in the way. But either way, what's not in the way is me, which means we're going to get to today's show. You guys are incredible. So enjoy today's show with Mr. Alex Rudd. All right. We are back for part two. I think without further ado, let's just bring him in here. The Lorax himself, Mr. Alex Rudd. What's going on, man?
Let's go. I've been waiting long enough, but sitting here having to listen to you two ramble on about God knows
Hold
what.
on here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh my God, dude.
Nope. No,
This
I can't hear you
freaking
at all.
soundboard, dude. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, this freaking soundboard, dude, is going to be the death of me. I swear.
Do you have a dongle going into your Mac from your soundboard?
Yes.
It's your dongle. It's not the soundboard. Mine does it all the time. Like if I were just to touch this thing and we would lose all sound. So yeah, it's the dongle. Them damn dongles will get you every single time. They just
Damn dongles.
Damn dongles will get you every single time, buddy. Every single time. No, I'm glad to be here though. I'm excited. You know me. I love a good podcast. I love to just blow hot air.
It's been a minute since I think we gotten you on here.
Has it?
I don't feel like it's been as long as some other folks, but like it's usually we have you on like it seems like once every month or two, but it's been a couple month hiatus. I feel like.
Well, I try to avoid your podcast at all costs, so I don't remember.
I don't blame you. I feel like that's what the listeners should do too.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be back. It's I love my favorite podcast, and it seems like the ones that always do the best are the ones where you text somebody at 6 o'clock and go, "Hey, can you come on the podcast?" They're like, "Sure," and then it just turns out to be really, really good. So here we are, and we're gonna send it. We're gonna see what happens.
I feel like every podcast host has their short list of emergency guests.
100%.
But nonetheless, like I don't want it to be.
Lost you again. This bastard. Bailey was saying something insightful about the podcast, but we don't know what it is.
It's like a 10-second pause.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Nope. Can't hear you again. Of course I come on here and it all falls to hell. I mean, if I touch anything, it should break. Oh, Lord have mercy. This is good.
I'm about to break it. I'm seriously about to break it. I'm about to actually unplug it and go to the MacBook here. I think that's what I need to do.
Yeah, if it messes up again, I would suggest that just to keep the smoothness going here. Yep, and it's gone again. So just go into the setting. Can you hear me? Nope, he's just going. He's unplugging everything. Look at him. If you're not watching the video version, ladies and gentlemen, in your own podcast version, Bailey has now officially said screw it. He has unplugged everything and he's going just straight into the Mac. But yeah, here we are. I'm glad you guys are here. We're gonna get started here in just a minute with Bailey. But for you guys that don't know me, my name's Alex Rudd. I got a YouTube channel called Alex Rudd Fishing, podcast by the same name, Instagram, TikTok. I do social media and just hang out. So yeah, we have fun. We do some stuff. I've uh I've had some fun guests on my podcast. Unlike Bailey, Serious Anglers is kind of just a trash podcast. If oh he's back, we can quit talking about him now.
I love how like literally everybody just completely dropped from this thing.
Yeah,
I can't stand this damn soundboard. I got to figure out a solution
that's
for this.
weird that it's doing it that much. Mine only does it like if I touch the dongle the wrong way. Otherwise, it works. That's really weird because you got the same one as me, right? The Rode.
Yeah, the Rode soundboard. It's like a freaking $500 piece of podcasting equipment that
Yeah.
decides to. It's gonna suck.
I don't know. They got a really good warranty, so hit them up and they'll hook you up. They're like really
Might
good
have to.
warranties. Yeah.
It's brutal, but either way, I was actually about to go on a rant, so it's a good thing it didn't because then it would have been cut off and would have lost its appeal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a rant. I think you might be actually kind of interested in this one.
I like
I was
rants.
talking with a really good buddy of mine, and we've been noticing some things here in New York. We have a couple counties here that are blocked off for smallmouth fishing until until season opener. So quote unquote season opener here in New York is when you're legitimately allowed to keep bass, which means that tournaments can finally start because you can actually have a bass in your live well, where most of the state you're allowed to fish for bass, but it has to be catch and release. But there are two counties in New York that are not catch and release. You cannot target bass, fish for bass at all until season opener. It's one of those being St. Lawrence County, and the other one being I always forget the name of this other one, but essentially, like, there's a good amount of eastern Lake Ontario through St. Lawrence River that are closed off. There is a small window of open season in Canada that you can go fish, which guys take advantage of. But for the most part, it is blocked off until I think it's the second weekend, like June 15th, every year.
Mm.
And I've been told multiple times by several people that there's been 40 to 50 bass boats going out of these places and fishing for bass out of season. So I have two things. One, for the people that the season is closed off. It's closed off for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a reason why the St. Lawrence River has been not as good the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Those months that those fish are protected or there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm all for having a fun bite, but the St. Lawrence and the Lake Ontario are always good. They're always good to fish. Leave the fish alone during the seasons because it's literally the law put into the state. Which leads me to my second point is the law put in by the state that the state does not enforce and doesn't give a damn about. They're out there, they have all these rules, but they're out there not giving a rat's ass about bass. And it drives me freaking nuts. I saw somebody post on social media the other day of this giant bag of smallmouth they caught. Well, congrats, you caught it a season that isn't even legal, and you posted it on social media. And the real people know where you posted it from. You look like a huge turd.
Yep.
So I'm sure they listen to it too. I hope that your post is getting shared around to real people. So if you get called out at a boat ramp soon, you brought it on yourself. It's just driving me crazy, dude. I had to say something on this thing.
Yeah.
No one else is saying anything in New York.
Yeah.
Might as well use this platform for something, but it just drives me nuts that we don't take care of our fish.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I mean, I think the thing that I think bothers me the most about all of this, like this conversation in general, right? It's a very nuanced conversation. I mean, especially state to state, body of water to body of water. I mean, it's a very nuanced conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think collectively, all of us as bass anglers can all say that we are having an effect on fishing like we never have before.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that has to do with the activation of so many new anglers and the activation of new technologies that has allowed us to fish for fish that we've never fished for before. And I think that collectively as anglers, we can all say something has changed and that some fisheries are not fishing like they used to fish. You know what I mean? Now some fisheries, like Sam Rayburn and some of these Texas fisheries, they're fishing better than they've ever fished before. But a lot of that has to do with the the way bigger like existential factors that a lot of us don't consider, like the overall climate of a place, the overall sunlight that a place, gets and stuff like that. And so when you're talking about like Texas and Florida and certain parts of California, you're talking about like every factor of under the sun that comes together to make like the best bass fisheries in the whole entire world. And like Texas Parks and Wildlife can do a lot, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's kind of like Iowa that grows big deer. You know what I mean? It's the genetics and what's in the soil and what's in the water that's in what's in the food sources that's creating these giant fish. And so when we look at the rest of the country, and when we look at New York, Tennessee, the Carolinas, anywhere across the country, I think we as anglers have to collectively say, hey, we are having an effect on fisheries. And so what do we as anglers need to do to self-regulate to make sure that we are preserving our fisheries for many, many years to come? And I think that the number one thing is obviously advocating for things to be done. But then once we've advocated for things to be done, like a law change, we'll then advocate for the enforcement of the law. Because that's one thing that we're seeing here. See, a couple years ago in Tennessee, or it's been a couple years, I'm pretty sure. They passed a law that wakeboard boats can't run in creeks. There's been no enforcement of that law. So the law exists and it's on the books, but there's no enforcement of the law.
Hmm.
Same thing with the Alabama spotted bass. I sent you a message the other day. We're not going to talk about it in public right now,
Yep.
but there's no enforcement of the law being done when they know without a shadow of a doubt, outside of having video evidence, but they know the people that are doing it. If you follow them enough, you'd probably see them doing it, of who's transporting Alabama spotted bass and ruining fisheries. So I think we as anglers not only have to advocate for the laws to change, but we have to advocate for the laws to be enforced. And then we have to have these conversations that we're having now and calling people out and being like, hey, we know what you're doing. Stop. Like, quit being a dick. You know what I mean? Like, quit being, because at the end of the day, ultimately, where this all boils down to what I think will be the critical tipping point. This is the slippery slope that we all find ourselves on, is that bass fishing is not as popular as people think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Fishing and hunting and outdoors recreation, where we actively participate in the taking of wildlife, is not as popular as everybody thinks it is. And the thing is there's more people who are ignorant to that process, that don't understand the North American model of conservation, that will vote against our ability for the taking of wildlife and the taking of fish than there are that'll vote for it. And all it takes is one of these big news organizations that's already lying about everything anyway. They're already bullshitting us all on everything that they say, whether Democrat, Republican, whatever it is, to take one of these stories and go, in the state of New York, there are people fishing outside of season for fish and XYZ or whatever. And then it's a national news story and there's people voting to take away our fishing rights ultimately across the board. And a lot of people think that that's a very hyperbolic statement. It's really not. It's really not. I mean, there's so many things that we have seen already and been proven without a shadow of a doubt that can be and will be taken away from us from a right standpoint, that fishing's not that far behind it. Neither is hunting, because none of those things, again, are as popular as people think they are, especially in the non-fishing, non-hunting community, and especially those people who are ignorant to that process. That's my outlook on it. I try to be a little nuanced in there, right? Like, but it's just the
Yeah.
truth at the end of the day.
Well, it is too. And then when you think about all the media outlets that are giant, that have the influence over the general crowd that might not understand anything about fishing, hunting, things like that.
Yep.
Let's say a TMZ, for example, this gigantic outlet that people look for drama,
Mhm.
and all they cover on fishing is the walleye cheating scandal.
Yep.
Now we have another cheating scandal, which I've been seeing around, and I'm torn here because it's like you're a media outlet, but at the same point in time, I don't want to spread news about a cheating scandal. I mean, most people, let's be honest, are talking about this recent. I think it's. I don't want to get the tournament trail wrong because I don't have the facts in front of me, but it's like I think it's Big Bass Tour that happened on. Essentially, a guy got caught
Yeah.
shoving weights into a bass.
Yeah, weights and fish.
And now there's YouTube channels that are chomping at the bit because they're going to get views off of it. We all know the big one that likes to complain about everything, But either way, I'm feeling frisky in this part too tonight. But
Let's get canceled, baby. Whoa.
yeah, but like it's then you have these news outlets that all they'll cover is the negative and the cheating. So then it puts a bad taste in the general public's eye,
Well,
which
let's
rallies
say,
people against you because they'll see you at a park fishing, and
yeah.
now they're gonna instantly have this negative connotation in your mind that you're doing something bad.
And let's hope to God that it's just a news outlet that gets a hold of it and not some social media content creator with some enormous following. Because we've both seen on TikTok like the rise of these like political commentators who are social media influencers. And so,
Mhm.
like, these people are commenting on things, and people are going to them to get their news, not understanding that the same organizations that are paying off Fox News and CNN are paying them off to say whatever they want them to say. And the thing is what happens when one of those people who are completely ignorant to the North American model of conservation and fishing and hunting and what we do here gets a hold of something like that? And CNN can broadcast it to 500,000 people, but they hit 17 million people. And then they go on this crusade for 55 TikToks talking about how fishing's bad or hunting's bad and how it's killing all these people. And then you've got, a quarter of the US population that's all up in arms against fishing. Dude, it's
Yeah.
that quick. I mean, we live in a time and a place where it's that fast. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's what I worry about. That's why I worry about like Randy Blockett saying that we're spotlighting bass. I mean, I'd love to have a conversation with him about it. I really like I want to have a cordial, respectful conversation with him about it. But that statement, spotlighting bass, is ammunition for animal rights activists to use against us. Period. End done stop. I don't care what anybody says. Randy has his opinion. I got my opinion. I respect his 100%. Hopefully, he respects mine. But like, I just think we've got to be really careful with terminology that we use because it will be grabbed, soundbite, and used against us. And when that happens, it can go down quick. I mean, dude, it's like a bridge with dynamite on it. I mean, you push the button, damn things, it's going down quick. And
Yeah.
our words are the dynamite, and social media is the trigger. We just got to be real careful with it.
Yeah. I mean, take for example Taylor Swift.
Mm,
Look at the impact and weight that she has from the quote unquote Swifties.
hmm
Imagine she comes out with a social media post that says fishing is bad or something along the lines of that.
Yep.
Do you know what that ripple effect that would happen?
I mean, dude, this is what I say all the time. That's why when I talk to a company or a business or a person, they're like, social media is not that big a deal. If the US government is going to Twitter and going, hey, you need to take down X tweets because it's going to affect an election or an international conflict or the opinion that Vladimir Putin has on us, then yeah, social media has an impact. You know what I mean? And like those are giant existential problems. But like you said, all it takes is Taylor Swift coming out going, I don't like hunting and fishing. I'm part of PETA. And then you've got 12 million sheep that all just are going to follow her by, like whatever Taylor says. And then they're all going to be against us. I mean, but it's just the truth. I hate her music. I hate Taylor Swift. I'm sorry. If you like Taylor Swift, good on you. But all of her music literally sounds like a mayonnaise sandwich to me. It is the most bland white girl thing that has ever existed. And it drives me nutty. All that being said, it's just the truth. They will follow her to the depths of the depths of hell. They'll follow her because they're like it's a cult. I mean, dude, that is modern day like Waco right there. Like it's a cult. I mean,
I'm
they're
not
like
arguing.
they're like Mormons. Like they really are. It's just a full blown cult. Like it is fundamental Mormonism out there in the desert with 15 wives and they're marrying 13-year-olds. But anyway, yeah. Yeah.
We're on a soapbox today.
Well, it's just the truth. I mean, but really,
I
I mean, I'm getting,
apologize. I totally
yeah.
started this thought.
Well, it's fine. I mean, I am trying to be kind of funny, but all at the same time, it's a very real problem,
It
and
is.
we got to be really careful with it. I mean, we just do, especially in today's times, man. Everybody's looking for something to, in the wise words of Ronnie Raddick of Falling in Reverse, zombify us all, and they're looking to pull something that you said 10 years ago and turn it against you, and they want to brainwash you and pump you full of, the sterilized, whitewashed formaldehyde of everything that is, the news and all that stuff. That's fine. Bring them on. Bring them on. Listen, I had Aronson twisted up on my podcast. He didn't know what his name was. I started talking about naked people, and he lost it. I love that kid. He's a good fisherman,
Yeah.
though. He beat
Shout
my
out real quick to Aaron here, who just won the first kayak adventure series event.
all right.
Yeah, for the listeners,
102.
yeah, a big old shoal bass, dude.
We
But
killed
for
it.
the listeners, his comment was the Swifties are about to cancel Alex.
Bring it
So if
on.
you don't see Rudd anymore, it's because the
They
Swifties
came
have him.
after me. Yeah, they're them and their mayonnaise sandwich music. But yeah, I don't even know what I was saying. I was saying something, but yeah. Well, yeah, I agree with you though. I agree with you. What else are we here for?
I don't know. I kind of usually just invite you on, and then we find ourselves in this.
Oh, you have one question. You said you'd messaged me something. You said you wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But
Oh,
I had one last thing I want to say on that before
okay.
we switch gears, and that is nowadays when we talk about just fishing in general, fishing's huge, but tournament fishing is getting even bigger. I know tournament fishing looks cool. You got the guys that have all the jerseys and all these logos. The bass boats are all decked out. They look like battleships, things like that. I think from a in a our guy instincts growing up in the outdoors are like, oh, that's some cool shit. That's freaking awesome. And there's nothing wrong with that. I will never say there's anything wrong with that. But we need to remember that while, yes, tournament fishing is cool, all this stuff that you can do in tournament morning blast offs, the theatrics of it, it's awesome. But remember, at the end of the day, we don't have it without the bass. If you don't take care of the bass, we're not going to be here. And that doesn't even just fall into bass itself. That falls
Amen.
into the forage. That falls into the other species that live in that ecosystem. Take care of the lakes first and foremost. Remember that there's other life here that we're dealing with. So I just had to say that because there's a lot of tournament fishermen that I see out there that treat these fish like absolute garbage, and it
Trash.
makes me sick.
Yes. 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 Yes, they do. And it's awful. And you are right. It's not just the bass. It is a whole ecosystem. And if elementary science taught us anything, is that if you take one part out of a food web, the whole food web can collapse. We have to think about these things. And so when you take an
Mhm.
Alabama bass from Alabama, where it's supposed to be, and you put it in Tellico Lake, where it's not supposed to be, those Alabama bass are going to breed out all the smallmouth, so we don't have any brown fish left anymore, and they're going to eat all of the species of fish that they can get their little greedy mouths on, and you can collapse whole food webs, and you can literally drive certain species of fish to extinction by doing that. Shoal bass are going to be one of those if we're not careful. They're already in the Ocmulgee River, and I can promise you guys, I tossed every single spotted bass that I caught up into the woods after I caught them on the Ocmulgee River, because that is a shoal bass fishery that is not going to have shoal bass in it anymore because people wanted to introduce an Alabama bass there like a jackass. So yes, I agree. That's the thing. People like, to me, dude, it's so existential. That's my word tonight, but it is existential to think about. Okay, I think our problem is, and I've talked about this before, and then we'll get off this because we can go down this rabbit hole all night. We as people, not just outdoorsmen, have a connection to charismatic megafauna. Okay, so bears, moose, meese, whatever you want to call them, elk,
Mhm.
deer, the meeses, elk, deer, the big stuff, and it's like you see these big animals, and if somebody came to you and said, "Man, if we don't stop introducing black bears into Yellowstone, we're not going to have any grizzlies." Then people would go, "Yeah, we probably need to quit with the black bears so that we can have grizzlies in Yellowstone because we don't want the grizzlies to go away, even though they are walking nightmares. We don't want the grizzlies to go away because that's a beautiful animal. It's a big megafauna animal. It's something that you can relate to." But we as humans, and especially as outdoorsmen, we forget all the little things, the little snail darters and the rainbow darters and the log perch and these little, like the true Coosa bass, not a Coosa River spot. That's just a slang term for Alabama bass, but a true Coosa bass. Those bass are doing well now, but every creek and river that the Alabama bass is introduced into, the Coosa bass ultimately find their demise. And there's already been species of black bass that no longer exist because of the Alabama bass, but it's because they're small and they're insignificant. They're not the big ones that we want to hold up on stage and that everybody wants to cheer for. That we as anglers just are like, it doesn't matter that, if it's gone, it's gone. No, literally, it's extinct, never to be seen again. It's like the
Yeah.
dodo bird or the Tasmanian tiger or any other species that you want to think. I mean, like it's like the condor, like the great condor. Like those things are almost gone. Nobody gives a shit because it's just an ugly bird. But like the thing is dude, when it's gone, it's gone. But all at the same time, you've got all these organizations that, we want to save the polar bears. We want to save this. Well, what do they want to save? Polar bears, tigers, pandas. The things are big. They're charismatic, things that they can attach things to. They're not worried about the little species. And see, that's where I worry because those little species are the foundation of food webs and food chains that are way bigger than you could ever imagine. And the thing is if you take out the log perch, then the bluegill don't got food. If you take out the bluegill, well, then the bass don't got food. And if you take away the bass, well, then the blue herons don't have food. And if the blue herons don't have food, well, then the coyotes and whatever else doesn't have food. And then you have the collapsing. We are on the verge of the next great extinction. And we as humans and as we as outdoorsmen, for some reason, can't look past our own nose and see that it's coming.
Half people can't look past their own social media posts, and granted, we're preaching to the choir as social media people, but they're more worried about what they're going to post on social media than actually taking care of the fish they're catching.
100%. 100%. That's why you have people who put 5 bass in a live well and drive them around all day, just take a picture of them, throw them back.
Yeah.
And
Look, I'm guilty of it. I've done it before, but you'll never see me ever do it again.
No, and
I
that's
understand. Like,
yeah.
I understand there's a lot of this that is like some people might be understanding or learning, going through the ropes now, and might be a first time thing. Like, we understand if you can't practice if you don't know, but
Yeah.
if you are doing it and you know about it, you're the scumbag.
Well,
Like,
that's the thing. I
it's
used
just
to be ignorant to so much information that I'm not ignorant to now. And so the true mark of a man, in my opinion, or a woman, either one, I don't care, is when they can admit they're wrong.
yeah.
And there's been many at times I've admitted that I'm wrong and I've changed what I'm doing to better myself. And so, like, I think a lot of us as bass anglers need to start listening to these dude. That's why I have these conversations on my podcast. Why I have these conversations here with you. It's why I'm always preaching it. Is because at the end of the day, catch and release of everything is not the answer. Catch and eating of everything is not the answer. There's a fine balance that needs to be struck, and there's things that we need to do to improve our fisheries. And, again, very nuanced conversation. This could last hours, right? This could last hours. But I mean, I would implore anybody and everybody to go listen to the podcast that me and Bailey have done with Steve Barden, with Gene Gilliland, with Shan O'Gorman, with John Hammonds. I'm about to have Dr. Steve Salmons on. He's the leading expert on shoal bass. And listen to these conversations, listen to what the experts are saying, because these people are not stupid. They're not against you. And I think that's one thing that we get a lot of like caught up on is that is that like we associate science with being wrong. And the science that these guys are doing is not the science that was being done during COVID and vaccines and all that shit that we don't trust. This science doesn't have any money put into it. Like these dudes are fucking, most of them are broke. I mean, as broke as they get. Like they got grants that are worth $20,000 and they need, $100,000 to get the grant done. These dudes are just out here doing it because they have a passion for fisheries and a passion for keeping, everything going and everything alive. And so I implore everybody just go listen to those conversations and now we can move on. But that's my call to action is go listen to those podcasts, listen to these guys and start to open your mind. So
yeah, it's you can have your opinions from your lake, what you've seen, but the thing that drives me crazy is the people that go in the comments on those episodes with the biologists and try to refute anything. It's like, well, my lake and my years, whatever. And I understand you have your opinion, but like these are the people that's their profession. They live in the field. It's one of those things.
My favorite,
like,
hold on, what rabbit hole. One of my favorite things that people do to try to qualify themselves in any aspect is they put their age at the beginning of their comment. I'm 62 and listen, being 62 don't mean dog crap to me. All right. I know some 62-year-olds that are heroin addicts. Doesn't make them any better than anybody else. Like just doesn't mean anything. Like you're gonna have to qualify yourself just a little bit more than, dude. I'm not shitting you. One time, I had a comment This guy said, I'm 62. The comment under it said, I'm 57. And then the comment that replied to that said, I'm 63. And all three of these dudes like qualified their comment with the age that they were. I love it. It's funny. But anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I just had to get that out there.
No, I mean, if anything, it was more supporting of what I was going to say, where it's like these people, they think it's because they've been fishing a lake for 30 years that makes them some expert on what the lake needs, where it's, let these fisheries biologists put in the time to actually figure out what the issue is and figure out a solution for it. Like, we're not going down this rabbit hole, but just for a quick example, like people talk about technology now. Let the biologist study the damn thing before we make a decision
Yep.
that is either for or against, because you and I could completely disagree on something and have an opinion on how it's to be done, but neither you or I have the fisheries biology background to make an actual educational decision on what is best for the fishery. So it's stuff like
Neither
that.
do we have the data. The only thing that we do have, and I will try to qualify some anglers a little bit here, is that we have anecdotal experience. And the thing is if you see something, say something. Like if you
Mhm.
see a decline in your fisheries and you truly believe that there's a decline in your fisheries, then do a little experiment. Catch fish, weigh them every single time that you catch them, and write it all down in a book. And if the overall size is dropping over a 3-month period, or something like that, then go to your fisheries biologist and be like, hey, this is what I think's going on. And that's how we started it on Douglas. That's how we got the regulations changed on Douglas to almost a slot limit. Is like literally the anglers were like, hey, we're not catching any big fish anymore. And they were like, all right, well then let's implement this and let's see what happens. And we've seen some size increase come back on Douglas. And so if you see something, you're probably not stupid. You know what I mean? Don't think that you need a fisheries degree to understand what's going on, but all at the same time understand that when these guys are making statements and they're making, bold statements at that like a lot of these guys will never say anything unless they've got years of data to back up what they're saying. It's just the field in which they're in. And so these guys are saying things because there's thousands of data points that have proven the point that they're trying to make so that they can make an adjustment in the long run. And I will say this, I'll put this out there and not go down this rabbit hole too far. Just because somebody has stickers on the side of their boat does not mean that they are a fish expert. They may be a fishing expert and they may be an expert at winning money in a tournament. It does not mean they are a fish expert. Pro fishermen are not fish experts. There's a lot of them who are probably very educated on bass, can tell you all kinds of stuff about them. I have taken pride in educating myself on bass in a very scientific way. But at the end of the day, I am still not a fish expert. And I'm not a fishing expert either, but just to put that out into the world, I mean, it's like our buddy Justin Hamner. Like, if we sat down with Justin Hamner, we could probably have a pretty intellectual conversation about bass. But
Mhm.
even him, there would be a certain point where if you brought the right person in and started talking about why you need a certain amount of green sunfish in a fish population to make sure it offsets XYZ and this plankton bloom and all that kind of stuff, all of us would be lost because we may know how to catch fish, but it doesn't mean we're an expert in fish. And so just kind of I think the biggest thing here that I'm trying to say is guard yourself in the information that you're getting. Have discernment and the understanding as to what you're listening to and what you're intaking. That doesn't mean don't listen to opposite opinions. I mean, I'm the guy who listened to Bernie Sanders on the Joe Rogan podcast, even though I think the guy's a complete idiot, but I do it because I want to educate myself as to why I think that. You know what I mean? And like, so I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is just guard yourself to the amount of information because especially when it comes to bass fishing specifically, there is so much just not right shit out there in comment sections. I read comment sections all the time and it's just like this is literally just festering with ignorance. And I say ignorance in the kindest way that I possibly can. Doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means you don't have the knowledge. It's a lack of knowledge. And a lot of these people, not only do they make ignorant comments, but then they'll defend them vehemently as if though they have some sort of like huge background education to defend it when really they don't. They're just, it's something their papaw told them and they read in Bassmaster magazine. And yeah, yeah, those are for profit businesses. They're not for the fishermen. So just putting that out there. Anyway,
If you have the model of the wise Ted Lasso, it is be curious, not judgmental.
that's right. That's right.
If you can just try that, like there's so many people in the comment sections that with exactly what you're preaching. It's like if you were just a little bit, ask. There's one thing to say, I disagree, but then ask a question.
Yes.
Especially somebody that has that information and the resources.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I have this opinion. This is what I believe, but let me ask about this."
Oh, yeah.
There's It's just like the same thing of like the 2 point of views. When there's a topic at hand, before you try to, speak your opinion into existence, look at both sides.
Yes. Yes.
Gather the facts, not the opinions. There's definitely a hard time for some people these days to understand what is opinion and what is fact these
It's
days.
like needs and wants, buddy. It's really hard for people to define what's a need and what's a want. You need food. You want a Big Mac. There's two different things there, boys. Like, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, no, you're right though, man. And that's what you'll notice is like when I have these dudes on that are way smarter than me. I mean, a lot of times I will frame questions by stating, "Hey, this is what I think anecdotally. Tell me why I'm wrong or why I'm right." And if they justify it, then they justify it. If they pick it apart and tell me I'm stupid, well, then it may be time to sit back and learn something and go on. But it's like I always told my elementary school kids when I was still a teacher, be a lifelong learner.
Mhm.
You do that, you'll end up better off than what you started with.
Amen. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you feel yourself not getting curious anymore, chances are you're probably going down that path. Force yourself to be curious. It's okay to force it a little bit, but yeah, I mean that's a great segue into one of the things I was actually going to talk with you about tonight is the pro side of fishing is like you and I talked. It's you and I are almost entirely different with I keep up with every single aspect of it, every pro, love to study it, watch every live event I can. Not saying that you don't watch any of it, but you're just less connected, if you will. And really, let's for the people watching, for people in MP3, you know, you have a certain amount of bass fishing
Mhm,
here. It's a certain subject of it. Maybe 20% of it tops is tournament fishing.
mhm,
Maybe.
mhm,
And that might be even highball on that number. But tournament fishing does not make up the majority of bass fishing. Tournament fishing is just it's like it's just a very loud voice of the sport of bass
mhm,
fishing. It's one that's shiny, one that people look at, but the majority of people one don't either fish tournaments or don't consume tournament fishing content.
mhm,
So for somebody, Alex, I want to get into the question here: is somebody growing up that has no interest in watching professional fishing, which is completely fine. There's
mhm,
nothing wrong with that. Any pro will tell. I mean, of course, they will obviously want you to watch their stuff, but they'll tell you that's not a problem as
mhm,
long as you're in the sport of bass fishing, it's a good thing.
mhm,
But for somebody like that doesn't want to consume professional fishing content, but wants to learn more about bass fishing beyond just obviously getting out on the water,
yeah,
what avenues do they have? Because obviously it's a different time now than it was 10,
yeah,
15 years ago.
yeah.
What
Well,
avenues do they have that you
they need
recommend?
to go over to Bass Fishing Tips on YouTube,
Here
and
we
they
go.
watch every video that he puts out. That's my other YouTube channel.
Hey,
That's
that guy kind of looks like it.
yeah, I think that's my twin. No, but I mean, for real, I mean, I think that, let me say this. I think that there's 2 different types of fishing, bass fishing specifically. I think that there's people who enjoy bass fishing from a recreational standpoint, and they wanna go out and they want to catch bass with no pressure, and they wanna have fun. And then I think there's tournament bass fishing, which I think can blur both, right? Because I grew up with a dad who was a tournament bass fisherman who taught me to fish as if though I'm fishing a tournament, even when I'm fun fishing, and so that's why I kind of have that's why I fish the way that I do, just because that's the way that I was taught. Even though I've taken up a mantle of a guy who just now likes to go fun fishing more than anything.
Hmm.
I still participate in tournaments, and I like tournaments. I mean, I'm going next week to fish a tournament in Michigan, Kayak Adventure Series. Um, but like it's a very strange dynamic for me, right? Like I'm a guy that when me and my dad went out there, we were pissed if we didn't catch 5 over 15 pounds. Even when we were fun fishing. But all that being said, I think that the most important thing, I think the best avenue for learning about fishing is guess what? Go fishing. Me and John was actually talking about this the other day. We were riding around, and me and John were kind of talking about how drastically different our fishing styles are. I mean, we're two totally different anglers. But the thing is we can both effectively go catch fish about dang near anywhere that we want to go. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have figured out our fishing styles and we just go fishing. I mean, if you looked at John Dalton, for you guys that don't know, John Dalton Creek Fishing Adventures, he's a YouTuber, he's a good buddy of mine. One of the like best humans that's ever lived. John is like the most wholesome guy ever. But anyway, um, if you look at him, he's the kind of guy that if you looked at him from a mechanic standpoint, from a gear standpoint, from a bass fishing education, we'll say standpoint, he's a dude that on paper would never win a tournament, that wouldn't catch a whole bunch of fish, and just probably across his life would not be a super successful angler. I can't tell you how many times that dude has beat my teeth in a tournament, throwing a buzz bait on a spinning rod, or throwing a spinner bait on a spinning rod, or throwing that damn young dinger he throws. And I mean, he beat me at Sholey Palooza. I mean, he came in 11th. He was one place out of the money. John literally stood 20 feet from me and beat me in that tournament. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that John just goes fishing. He's not worried about people's opinions. He's not worried about the latest and greatest gear. He's not worried about that. He has figured out a set of tools that work for him, and he goes fishing. And so that's my first piece of advice is just go fishing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second one would be like get to know some anglers around you. Like if you don't have a person in your life, like a dad or a granddad or an uncle or a brother, a sister, an aunt. I mean, whatever. I mean, it's like my mama, which was my dad's mom. I mean, she taught him everything he knew about hunting. She was a strange woman in her time. She was a hunter in the 70s with kids. A single mom that hunted. Really really cool. Um, yeah, sometimes all you need to win a tournament's a black trickworm. Aaron, he's another great example. I mean, dude just goes. Aaron has a style, and he goes fishing. I mean, we talked about this on my podcast. Like his style is creeks and rivers. That's what he likes to do. He goes and does it. It's a John Cox move. Look at John Cox, a great example. You want to go to the Sticker Boys? John Cox, a great example. I mean, dude has a style, goes for it. But all that being said, yeah, I gotta call him Sticker Boys.
Okay, real fast before we keep going. I was watching. We talked about it Friday real quick.
Yeah.
But that video on X2 Power of you and I fishing against Justin Atkins and Wes Logan.
Yeah.
And was it Hamner and Hunter are commentating and they cut us off to fish.
Yeah.
And you're like, I think you were like, you damn douchebags in your sticker boats or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The best part about
yeah. The best part is he goes, there ain't no fish up that shell, and you throw that frog over and crack that 4-pounder. I'm like, shut up, you bunch of sticker boys. Don't ever tell kayak anglers we're too shallow. But anyway, but like if you don't have somebody like that in your life, go find some dudes to fish with. You would be amazing how welcoming the fishing community actually is, especially kayak fishing community. I mean, these dudes, they want to help you out, and it's like my buddy. I got a buddy named Anthony. Anthony moved to Florida, and his dad, his brother's here, left the fishing boat here, moved to Florida for a job. Well, Anthony went down there and made friends with some dudes who fish, and just started fishing with a guy, and now kind of has like a little bit of a bass fishing mentor in Florida who's teaching him the ropes on bass fishing. And so that's another great way to do it. And I think ultimately what that goes back to, it connects right back to my main point, which is just go fishing. Get yourself on the bank, in a boat, in a kayak, whatever it may be. Just get out there, put a rod and a reel in your hand, and be around people who know more than you do. Because at the end of the day, I only know what I know because of what my dad taught me. And then I took what my dad taught me and I expanded upon it. And I can remember key times when I would bring something to my dad and be like, hey, we've never done this, but I think we should try this. I saw this on YouTube. or so, because that's where I still consume fishing is YouTube. And so like back in the day, I was watching these dudes in California punching. It like wasn't a big thing around here. It was before punching got really big. And like, dude, I was punching 1 ounce, 2 ounce weights on grass mats on Lake Gunnersville before people were really doing it back in like 2007, 2008 timeframe. And I'm sure there were people doing it, but I was out there doing it and catching fish. And then so then like my dad learned from me, then the whopper plopper, but that was another one, watching Larry Delberg catch muskies and pike. And so I went and bought a whopper plopper because I was like, I want to go try to catch a muskie on Mountain Hill, and then figured out, oh shit, 20-inch smallmouth will eat it too. Well, and that was another thing in the repertoire. And so I consume, that being said, my next point would be consume things outside of bass fishing. I can promise you, I've learned more consuming trout, muskie, striper, other predatory fish than I have in bass fishing. Well, I wouldn't say I've learned more, but I've learned an immense amount of weird shit that works that I've told you about. I mean, it's like choppos and whopper ploppers. I mean, dude, that was literally Larry Delberg. Amazon fishing, muskie fishing. I was like, that's a cool lure. I want to go try it out. I bought one and I experimented until I figured out how it works for me. And now there's a bite that I can go get on from July to about October and hammer fish on that thing.
Yeah.
And it's super fun. And it's just because I tried something different. It's shoal bass. Shoal bass. I learned a lot shoal bass of watching dudes on the internet that were not tournament anglers, just dudes out there fun fishing. And then things that I learned during trout fishing, how trout use certain runs and how trout use riffles and how trout use rocks. Shoal bass is essentially a bass trout is what it is. Like they act exactly the same. And so I learned how to fish those fish by kind of applying some trout stuff. And if you watch Aaron's outdoor, and there's no S on the end because somehow he screwed up and didn't get the plural. The dude is a Chapo fiend. He likes Chapos like I like Blaze Money Badgers. But yeah, I mean that for me is the three biggest ways that if you're not going to consume pro fishing, and honestly, you got to be really careful with pro fishing too, in my opinion. Not that I'm saying those dudes aren't fishing experts, because they're fishing experts. But sometimes they're going to lead you down a path that you may not exactly need to be going because they're doing what's working for them on any body of water. And then what could be working for them may not actually be what's working for them. And they're doing a really good job of hiding what's actually working because they're worried about cashing checks. And that's where that whole thing, the dynamic between tournament fishing and fun fishing comes in. When I'm fun fishing and making videos, that's why I just put everything out into the ether and just don't really care because it's never going to come back to bite me. I don't make my money by placing high in tournaments. I make my money by having fun. Whereas a dude who's got everything banked on light payment gets paid because he wins or does well in a tournament is about damn near willing to do everything outside of breaking the rules to make sure that he wins, including lying straight to the camera or pulling out baits that he's not actually throwing so that they can take pictures of those and it can lead you astray. And it's kind of like, I kind of view pro tournaments, especially like while they're actively going on, is like televised and social media driven doc talk. Like you got to be really careful with it. You know what I mean? Just putting that out there. Not to say those dudes don't know what they're doing, because we all know Kevin Van Dam is the best angler that's ever lived, and whatever Kevin Van Dam says about crankbait fishing, go do that. But all at the same time, I just think, again, going back to what I said earlier, have discernment on the information that you're taking in, and just kind of make sure you're getting what works for you and is going to work for you. And I think what works for everybody ultimately is going out there and going fishing.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of taking everything with a grain of salt. It's one thing I'll say is like, the people eat up the top 10 baits that post by Bassmaster or MLF, from the each event. I there's some stuff that you can take from it that's pretty good. You can learn some good baits, things to buy, things that guys are actually using. But if you go back and you compare those top 10 baits compared to the live footage and you pay attention, you'll see just how many pros lie to your face on what they're actually using. And I'm not afraid to tell them to their face because they know this. They'll admit this. They're going to hide it. I mean, I remember not watching. I've read one of those articles. It was like a year or two ago. of one of the guys that was on the St. Lawrence River that literally for his top 10 baits photo covered his baits with his hand and showed the camera.
Yeah.
Well, at least he was honest. Like he's like, I'm
Yeah.
just not going to show you.
Yeah.
But like, it's yeah. I mean, but that goes for YouTube. That goes for social media. Like I remember there's a guy that
I
I
lie to
saw.
people all the time about what I'm throwing. You know, I'm just a liar. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I think it's one thing if you want to keep something hidden, that's like, all the power to you. But like there are still people though that there is a lot of misinformation. There's saw a guy that was throwing a suspending jerkbait and was called it a spook.
Mhm,
There's some things you just need to, and
mhm,
that's a time thing and experience of
yeah.
understanding what's
Well, and I
what.
think too, one thing to watch out for that I've been seeing a lot of lately is like, how do I approach this gingerly without, or I could just kick the door wide open. I'm not really sure which one I want to do right now. Let's
Okay.
go gingerly at first. Like any kind of JDM bait, I think people need to understand is there's a lot of money in all of that, in that people are going to say things about those baits that may or may not be true because it makes them look better and it's going to make them a bunch of money. Like a knockoff or whatever it is. There's somebody making money somewhere. So be careful with that. Like when you go to just because X bait was made by X company first doesn't make it better. And that if X person is promoting X bait because X company made it first, they're making money off of it while they're posting it. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why there's certain guys that like to throw and find better success throwing the Chapo over the Whopper Plopper and vice versa.
Mhm.
There's instances where they differ. And I'll add on top of your statement, for that instance, one that called something a knockoff, but then called something that was Japanese that was the same thing, revolutionary.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, there's just be careful what information you consume. Again, take everything with a grain of salt.
You don't know
Uh,
who's being paid for what, and that's why I always tell people, like, Pure Fishing pays me. That's why I use Berkeley baits and Abu rods and Pure Fishing stuff. Now, the thing is if I'm not using a Pure Fishing thing, I'll also tell you that. And also, it's really hard for me to hide what I'm throwing because you get a 4K view of my hands constantly. Like when I pull a bait out of a fish's mouth, most of what I put is cast to catch. I'm reeling it in. I'm putting in the kayak. You're seeing me pull a slobber knocker out of their mouth. But all at the same time, like I love the owner Nico. What is it? Nico Finesse, whatever. The damn thing's got a name this long, but it's like the Nico Finesse sniper hook or whatever. I literally say that's the hook that I throw because that's the one that I want to throw. Like
oh,
I'm not going to lie to
owner
people.
sniper.
The owner, yeah, but it's the Nico sniper, right?
It's
Owner
just
Nico.
called the owner sniper finesse. This
Oh,
is what it's
okay.
called.
Never mind. I thought it was way fancier than that, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, I buy like 10 packs of those a year. Number one size, buy 10 packs of them. I love the damn things. But all that being said, like there's a lot of people who are not going to put on their shirt who they're getting paid by like the pros do. You know what I mean? Because that's how pros get paid. But these other guys who may be promoting these baits, promoting these companies, may be getting some money under the table or just may be getting a big check written to them to make sure baits are in a shop or baits are in a place and that they're being sold. And you just got to, just saying, have discernment and be careful with it.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
The
Michael
other
Brown.
day,
Okay, the door's still closed. Kick it in. Let's do this. These sons of bitches. No.
yeah, it's uh, the the last hour that we've been
In a
talking.
world in a world of douchebags, just be a nice person. That's all I'm saying.
It does not. Yes, it does not take effort to be a nice person.
Yep.
And so there's so many times we talked about it recently of with how much negative is going on in the fishing industry. It's not hard to be the one person that's trying to be positive.
Mhm.
And that's one where I admire. That's you're doing it. Ben's doing it. There's several people that are trying to lead down that path. Carl Jochimson on Friday talking about his Fear My Heart incentive, where it's like screw all this negative crap.
Mhm.
We're gonna award the people that are doing good things for the sport, and we're gonna talk about it.
Yep.
And that's one thing I'm excited. I mentioned it earlier. We're gonna get the Carl and then the Fear My Heart incentive winner on every show to spread the positive story that
Yep.
somebody saw on that trail versus all the the people that all they want to talk about is the drama of the trail. Well, no, screw that crap. We're going to talk about the positive. It's not like we're not sitting here preaching about all these issues and solutions and then act like we're not also feeling negative about certain things. Like we do. Alex and I talk every day. There's definitely a lot of negative that we get wrapped up in, but we remind ourselves that at the end of the day, we love this sport for a reason. If we keep reminding ourselves of that, we'll do the right things and help hopefully band together, lead the sport down the
Well,
right
and
path.
at the end of the day, that's why we get as worked up about certain things as we do, is because we do love bass. We love bass fishing, right? And I
Mhm.
mean, that's why, like conservation and invasive species are one of my things that I get worked up on. It's because I love bass, not just a bass, a particular 5 set of bass that may win a tournament. I love bass, all of them. Like I want them all to thrive because when they all thrive, we all have fun. Um,
Mhm.
but I think, I mean, and you're right. Uh, this conversation we've had can be viewed in a negative light or a positive light, or however you want to view it. But I think what we're doing here is we're having a nuanced conversation about things that we see that trouble us, and that what all I'm doing, and a lot of what I'm saying is honestly just going like, hey, from the perspective of the guy standing on the inside and everybody else, we're the people on the stage and everybody else is out there in the crowd, right? Because we get a backdoor kind of seat into the industry and what goes on. What I'm trying to show you is like, hey, just watch out for some things. Understand this is a very nuanced conversation, and this is a balancing act to make sure everything goes the right direction in every aspect. Bait making, pro tour, money in, money out, conservation, fisheries management, all these things are being tossed around in this madness that is bass fishing in particular. And so I think, we just have these conversations so that hopefully, and kind of what I want to do, and my hope is that I give a somewhat balanced, level-headed perspective to people who are trying to discern all of this stuff that's thrown at us 24/7. It's like what's something I don't even know about. Like someone would have to educate, like the whole MLF Boyd Duckett James Watson thing. I have not a single clue what's going on with that. But people send it to me all the time and they want my opinion on it. And the thing is I won't give you my opinion on it because I don't know what's going on. And
Mhm.
also, it's kind of just a negative thing that honestly, right now in my life and with what I've got going on, I really just don't care to know about
Mhm.
it. And that's kind of what we kind of talked about it earlier. It's like I don't consume pro bass fishing just because I mean, I hate to say this. I have a lot of friends who are pro bass fishermen. They're good dudes. I love those guys. I just
Mhm.
don't care though. Like I really don't care. I know Justin Hamner won the Bassmaster Classic. Outside of that, I could not tell you a single person who's won a tournament this year. Nope.
Yeah, I mean,
Jordan
that's
Lee,
the prime example of it.
Jordan Lee, Jordan Lee won that MLF tournament just a couple days ago. I do know that because Berkeley posted it. But other than that, dude, I got nothing. You know what I mean? And it's just because I'm that type of human who just doesn't consume it. But I want to also be able to give people a level-headed perspective of just fishing and what's going on. And so hopefully they can kind of discern and make their own opinions. And
Yeah.
that's the best part is it's my opinion, and opinions are like buttholes, and normally everybody stinks. Hopefully mine's kind of wiped clean and smells pretty good. But anyway, go on, Bailey. Go on. I use the bidet, so maybe it's all good and washed off. It's squeaky clean for the consuming.
Uh,
Anyway,
I think that's the perfect way to wrap it up. Otherwise, we're gonna go down some other rabbit hole for an hour. Well, you hear that, people? Make your own opinions and bring your own bidet.
that's right. Right. If you're gonna let me know your opinion, at least make it clean before you give it to me.
That's
Wipe
right.
wipe it with some dude wipes and make sure it's good and squeaky clean. The menthol ones are the best. They make your butthole kind of tingle. But anyway, they'll make your opinion tingle too. Uh, dude wipe, give me a call.
Yeah.
Email me, alexrevision@gmail.com. We'll see you later.
And that's how you market, people.
That's how you get paid right there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Dude, what I like about it is that, like you mentioned, it could be somewhat perceived as negative, and I totally understand that. And that's something I've been trying to avoid on the show for weeks on end. Um, is avoiding these big topics, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes when your guest wants to talk about them, your guest wants to talk about them. But I think what I like we did in this one is that, yeah, we might have pointed out some negative, but we also provided solutions to it. Whereas there's certain people right now that are making only videos about negative things, telling you about them, but they're not providing a single solution. Instead, they're just providing with opinion that is just basically to get you to thumbs up, band together, and be negative together, which
Oh
does
yeah,
nothing for anybody.
stoke the fire, get out the pitchforks, and let's storm the castle. And like I think that's one thing that I'm definitely saying too is guard yourself to that because we as humans we are tribal. Period. It doesn't stop at the end of the day, and we can get so wrapped up in the politics and the tribalism of any aspect of life. And so you just got to be really careful not to just become a Swifty, consume your mayonnaise music sandwich and just like fall in line with the rest of the sheep. I mean, be the guy who's willing to walk back against that and just not fall into that trap of a mayonnaise music sandwich.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
my mayonnaise music sandwich. You like that? Hey, and like I
Yep.
used to tell my kids all the time, you said it, everybody will provide you with a problem, but not a solution. My kids, when I was a teacher, especially my fifth graders, they'd walk up, oh, Tracy said I'm ugly and blah, 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 and this and that and this, blah, blah, blah. And I go, all right, you've told me the problem. So I've heard the whole problem, and all you've given me is a problem. How are you going to fix it? And they would just stand there and look at me. And they go, well, maybe I could tell her that hurts my feelings. I'd go try that. And normally there was a resolution. Sometimes Mr. Rudd had to step in and resolve it himself. And sometimes there's going to be aspects of life where that happens. But for the most part, you would be amazed how if you just stop and think, what is the resolution to the problem that I have manufactured for myself or has been manufactured for me? You can look at it as a positive light. You can flip that negative into a positive and you can turn it into something good. I want to see the kitty. I heard it. Look at him. Look at his face. He's like, put me down, damn it. He's like, put me down.
He's
Look
sitting
at
here
his
trying to climb up
face.
my lap. Yeah, he does not like the camera.
What's up, buddy?
Yeah.
That's what Kitty, my cat, she'll be like, she'll want something, she'll go, and then here she'll come running across the room. And I'm like, what do you need, cat?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I forgot. I mean, on my stupid soundboard wouldn't work, so you could hear him now with the MacBook.
I got a soundboard. What do you want? Do you want blue, kind of dark blue, kind of teal blue, or yellow?
Let's go teal blue. Perfect ending. That's it, people.
There's one more. All right,
there you go. Buddy, I appreciate you. I love you. And always love getting you on this show.
Absolutely, buddy. Love you too, man. Hopefully by the end of next week, I'll be holding a Kayak Adventure Series trophy and we can come back on here and talk about it.
Hell freaking yeah. Go smash them up in Michigan. If people are not signed up for that, I don't know what to look for. But
yeah,
folks, appreciate y'all. You guys are amazing. We'll see you on we'll see you next week. We got episode with the Omnia Fishing folks, but you guys are sweet. Alex, you're amazing. We'll see you folks in the next one.